Welcome to the Kolbe Cast, episode 268. Thank you for joining us. Today we are joined by Kolbe alumnus and chaplain at the National Shrine of Our Lady of Champion, Father Nathan Mudd of the Fathers of Mercy. We get to hear about Father's Kolbe experience, his love of reading, and his call to the priesthood. He also talks to us about the apparition of the Blessed Mother and his work at the shrine in Champion, Wisconsin. We hope that you'll enjoy the show.
Hi there, I'm Bonnie, Kolbe homeschooling mom of 4 lads and lasses, liturgical musician, popcorn, and podcast fanatic.
And this is Stephen, homeschooling father of 5 and director of development for Kolbe Academy.
Good morning, Stephen. How are you?
Doing very well. Looking forward to the conversation today because it's kind of take me back a few years on a trip that I made with my daughter. So it's brought me. I've been reminiscing this morning in preparation for today's conversation.
Oh, nice. I'm looking forward to hearing about that. Our guest today is Father Nathan Mudd of the Fathers of Mercy. He's a Kolbe alumnus as well. Hi, Father Nathan. Welcome to the Kolbe Cast.
Thank you, Bonnie. It's good to be here.
It's really great to visit with you and get to know you a little bit. You are a Kolbe alumnus, so we like to catch up with such folks and hear the impact that Kolbe has had on your life and your vocation and what you're up to these days, as well as where you're serving and so forth. So would you tell us about yourself and your background and your Kolbe connection?
Sure, yeah. So I'm from Missouri, small family. Got one younger sister, but we both went through Kolbe Academy's high school program. So I graduated back in 2010 with Kolbe. Raised Catholic. One of the standout things that we did was attending daily mass, especially during those high school years. Made a huge difference in our family life and getting schoolwork done, which was a high priority, even with all the farm chores and stuff.
Okay. So that would have been before the online academy. So this is all offline work. Aside from daily mass, which is wonderful, and you mentioned farm chores, do you have any other kind of standout remembrances or experiences from homeschool that you would care to share with us that would maybe help our families?
Yeah. So one of the things that we were really blessed with growing up, we had a Catholic homeschool group that we were a part of nearby that met once a month. But each of the families kind of went to some of the same daily masses too. And then my mom was running like a study group for other homeschool moms on theology and spiritual life. And so every 2 weeks I got to see other kids from the homeschool group. So we always had a good social group. I played baseball during elementary school with the public school team. That was a lot of fun too. So there was a great, vibrant community life. But on the other hand, one of the things that I realized later, this was in seminary, was because of for a large part, you're being taught by books, right? The books and the study guides. And these were actually all stuff that my mom had, for a great deal, she read a ton, and especially a lot of classic literature. So a lot of the stuff that I was getting through Kolbe, she had already read. But I came to see books as the authority. Like if it was written, it was authoritative. And what a living person might have said, because I didn't have like a teacher per se, a living person might say it would be, well, why was that an authority? And I remember this came home to me in college seminary when I was with a professor. We visited the New York Metropolitan Museum. And while we were there, we were walking by a display of some Roman pottery, and the professor we were with looked at that and he said, they say this was used in the household or stuff, but you could tell by the symbolism and this other thing, it was used in the liturgy, probably in the catacombs, da-da-da-da-da. And then he walked off, and I was like, does he know what he's done? Like the sign says this thing was used in the house for this object or whatever. How does he know it was used in the liturgy? I mean, these people who write this, they study these things, they know them. Oh, wait a second. This guy could have written the description for a museum piece because the guy had studied in Rome, knew medieval Italian, was reading Dante in the original text. And that's when I realized, like, oh, it's people who write books, and professors and teachers have that role for a reason. It's
Yeah.
very humbling because I went from approaching everything that a professor said with skepticism and like, well, if it's not in the book, then how true or how real is it to, oh, these are the people who write the books. They are the authorities, not just the printed word. That was a big mental shift, actually.
Sure. Yeah. That would be. So after your Kolbe studies were finished, you entered the Fathers of Mercy. Would you tell us about how your Kolbe studies influenced your discernment of your priestly vocation?
Yeah, I think a lot of um, the study of the theology at the time, a lot of what Kolbe used, from what I remember, was the Father John Lau books,
Hmm.
and those were excellent, just forming a lot of foundational principles on theology and prayer even. Um, so there was always that background principled foundation. Like I knew what the Catholic faith was. There were no doubts about the different things. And as I was reading, the Introduction to the Devout Life was part of the program as well. So books on prayer and writings of the saints that were in there always gave me this understanding, this idea of what it means to discern a vocation and how the saints did it and how uh, we participate in that as well.
Okay. I am not familiar with the Fathers of Mercy. So can you tell me more about that order?
The Fathers of Mercy were founded in 1808 in France as an effort to re-evangelize the people who fell away from the church during the French Revolution. So a lot of their work was from 1808 with a couple gaps to 1830 was in cities and primarily preaching these big missions. Today, if you go to a parish mission, it'll be anywhere from 3 to 5 days in the United States from what we practice, but also the Dominicans do something similar, and so do the Passionists and some other religious orders. But back then, what they did was called a grand mission, and it would last 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes even up to 3 months. The Grand Mission of Paris in the 1820s lasted 3 months. And it was preached in several different churches in the city at the same time. And it concentrated on reestablishing the fundamentals of faith with a heavy emphasis on forgiveness, receiving the forgiveness of God, and then offering that same forgiveness to those who had offended you. Because there were a lot of people who were hurt by neighbors turning atheists and then accusing them of things to bring them before revolutionary tribunals and things. So a lot of people had to forgive each other. A lot of people had to also receive the mercy of God and coming back to Him after crimes that they had committed during the revolution under the pretext of, well, we're throwing off the shackles of the old regime, which also means the church. Fathers of Mercy were largely responsible for that. There was another group operating at the same time that were Jesuits before the Jesuits got suppressed in France. And so they were still popularly known as the Jesuits of Laval. But I've heard it said that without those two missionary groups, the church in France wouldn't even be there today. Maybe out in the country where they didn't suffer as much of under the atheist philosophies as the cities did. But certainly in the cities, there were a lot of thousands of people repenting at these missions.
Wow, okay. So how did you become familiar with the order then?
Oh yeah.
Was it near you or how did it come to you?
When I was growing up, I was blessed with a couple of really solid pastors in my home parish, Queen of Peace in Ewing, Missouri.
Okay.
So I say I'm from Hannibal, it's just because it's the closest place on the map. Ewing, Missouri was my home parish. And so a couple of really Orthodox pastors there brought in Fathers of Mercy to preach parish missions at the parish. So I think during 8 years, my last 8 years in school, I met 5 Fathers of Mercy who did parish missions there. And I loved what they were doing with that, coming in, preaching the truth and the faith, just fundamentals of the faith, but different ways, different stories from the different missionaries. And I just fell in love with that idea of being a traveling missionary, going to a place and teaching and preaching the truth, and then going on to the next place. And especially when I went through formation, because I entered right out of high school, I had to learn. While my great desire for the truth was huge and strong, that doesn't mean that you have to beat people over the head with it. It was just in my as a rather arrogant 18-year-old, that was my idea of what it was to be. And during novitiate, I learned a lot about the mercy of God and how the Fathers of Mercy bring people. It's about bringing people back to Jesus and back to a life of grace that they've otherwise haven't known or have fallen away from. It's about bringing the mercy of God to them, not just truth of doctrine. That's part of it, but not the whole of it.
Okay. What a tender ground to tread upon. That's yeah.
Yeah. I was just recently at a institute for confessors and 25 priests together to talk about becoming better confessors and bringing the mercy of God to people in confession. Loved it. And it really brought to the fore a lot of things that even here at the shrine that we're doing. And that piece of my vocation, bringing the mercy of God, happens mostly in the confessional.
Well, as we were planning this episode, I was delighted to see a comment you made about your love for reading fiction and how your Kolbe formation has informed that, kind of influenced that. Would you say more about that? Tell us about that, this intersection of your interest in reading fiction and your Kolbe formation.
One of the things, I don't know if they still do this, but Kolbe had sent, when we started high school, a recommended reading list that had like recommended reading for all the different grade levels.
Yep.
And that was a huge resource. Like I said, my mom read a lot, and we made use of the local public library as much as we could. I think we visited the library every 2 weeks. And at the time, when I was in grade school, it was 10 books was your limit. So we'd come out with 10 chapter books, Hardy Boys, Wizard of Oz series. Those are two I remember going back to a lot. But because of that recommended reading list, every grade I was able to expand into different things. And what I loved about that list is it didn't just concentrate on Catholic fiction, right? It wasn't limited to just things by Catholic authors or that were strictly Catholic. It opened up to anything that was a solid or had good to it. Even some things where maybe certain authors, not all of their works were to be recommended, but some. I remember one name on there, Ursula Le Guin. She's out there in terms of like environmentalism and some other stuff. She's very well, she's not somebody whose interviews or podcast I would listen to, right? But her book that Kolbe list was the Wizard of Earthsea trilogy, which when I finally found a copy and read it, was a fascinating story about heroism and temptation, darkness and light, written in a very old style. But yeah, other stuff of hers, I guess, might be more objectionable. And I love that Kolbe was willing to put stuff in there that would expand one's horizons. Because this is something I like to talk to youth about in discernment in literature and their entertainment, because there's so much stuff out there and a lot of stuff that people just dive into. I remember 2 series that were out on Netflix a couple of years, maybe 10 years ago now, that a lot of teenagers were watching, and I was like, this isn't right. And when giving talks to groups of kids, I would be like, first thing you look at is, kind of do a self-examination. Why am I reading what I'm reading? And is it for good reasons or for poor reasons? And then secondly, examine the author. Why did the author write this? Because some people write things precisely to manipulate youth. I think Philip Pullman's his Dark Materials series is an example of that. Bad intentions on the part of the author. The third question I ask is, does this story leave room for God? Does it leave room for creation and divinity? Kind of like Lord of the Rings does, right? It's a myth made for England that would also prepare for Christianity, right? And then that fourth question is then, what are the fruits produced by it? Do the people I know who read these things, how did they react? You find some books about magic, with magic in them, a lot of people you hear who turn to actual witchcraft in the world, and there are some books with magic in them which don't seem to bear that fruit. Those are all good questions to think about when we're looking at reading material, and opens up to reading material that, yeah, it's not Catholic per se, but there's still good things about it.
We always like to kind of treat it as anything that's true belongs to us, so we get to take it and treasure it.
Right.
I think all these are excellent questions for any of us to consider about what we are reading. So, how do you like to start the conversation? And kind of what is there a sort of an overarching response you tend to get from the young people you're visiting with? How does that tend to go?
Most of the teenagers I've talked to haven't really thought deeply about how what they're reading or taking in affects them. And so when you open up with, I talked about the talk that I was giving at conferences, I called How to Slay a Dragon. And of course, that always attracts the exact audience that I want, kids who are interested in adventure stories and adventure movies. Then I ask what people have been watching or reading, talk about that because I really try to keep up with that stuff so I can talk intelligently about that. And then I start off with dragons have always been in classical literature, have this voice that tempts, that woos, that seduces, right? And gets and implants itself kind of into the minds of those who listen with an attentive ear. And we have to fortify ourselves like the adventurer with the knowledge that the dragons are going to try to do this, present something bad to us as good. And how many times has that happened? A lot of kids who usually come to those sort of talks or I've already read The Hobbit, so I'll talk about Bilbo's interaction with Smaug. Uh, but outside of that, then if I find somebody if they're interested in reading and not just watching movies or TikTok videos, I guess, then they're already open to thinking about that. Once you say, so how do you decide what you read? Be like, you might get, oh, I never really thought about that. Just whatever I can find. Then we get into, well, what does this mean? And they just haven't really considered those questions before. And it's like opening up a world to them that they're excited about. Because those who read, I tend to approach things with an openness and a desire to think about things in a deeper way.
I can see your Kolbe formation showing up there, though, in just the deeper look that you're taking at what's it's not just this passive just receptivity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was on the airplane recently and I pick stuff beforehand. Like I know I'm going to be on the airplane. I have what I'm going to read. I might have something I'm going to watch on a long flight. I pick it. And watching other people on the airplane go through stuff, click on and they on the touch screens and on the back of seats on this one airline. Then they click on something and watch it halfway through and they're on their phone and I realized I was like, wow, they being put into what am I watching? Because they're not going to pay that much attention to it.
And yet it's still coming in. There's still something.
Yeah. There's still something that's settling in there as they get, oh yeah, well, this is normal. As unspeakable things go on in front of them.
Yeah.
Always find it hard to actually do that myself with those screens because I guess I'm more like you in the careful selection of it. And so it's like this is a public space and what I'm watching says something about me. And I'm not sure I want to share that with with a bunch of maybe I should choose something that says something about me that I want to share with everybody around me. But I always feel very self-conscious about putting a screen up and because yeah, I think because it is personal for me that
Mhm.
that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that though. That just the start this, watch that. Yeah, that's very interesting.
I'm sure there's lots more to say. Is there more you would like to say at this point about the reading and entertainment choices before us?
Yeah. One of the things that I realized in seminary was just because it's Catholic doesn't mean it's good. And this is maybe I'm reading snob, so forgive me. But I picked up a Catholic book by an author. I mean, this would have been 2012, 2014, somewhere in there. And it was a newer book. And I was reading it. And as I was trying to go through it, I was like, I thought people liked this. I'm not enjoying this. It's like reading the catechism. Every character talks the same. And they were talking about like pro-life stuff. It's like, well, I don't understand what's wrong with abortion. Well, abortion is the murder of an innocent, da 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 da. And it just quoted the catechism, and everybody did that. And I was like, I am bored with this. And it was the first book I sat down. I went to my spiritual director. And I was like, I feel guilty that I don't want to finish this book. And he was like, well, if it's poorly written, why would you want to finish it? It's okay. You don't have to finish every book you start. I was like, oh, okay.
Right.
Um, but that was a just poor writing. How to put it? Poor writing is no is to me a barrier to the truth of being spread. And I don't think there's that that just because it's true doesn't mean it's good to read. If it's poor writing, it's going to form you poorly in conversing or expressing your thoughts or ordering ideas in your head, and that's a sad thing.
It seems like that ability to tell stories is kind of to do storytelling well is independent of to some extent of whether how Catholic you are, I guess. When you were talking, it was making me think of the first time I read War and Peace. And I thought, wow, the story throughout War and Peace is one of the most beautiful, rich stories that I've read. But then Tolstoy would jump in and explain what's going on and with his own philosophical sort of things. And I think you don't understand even what you're writing. This is not the story you're telling, what you're trying to explain. But yet it's beautiful and he captures the characters superbly. But it's very interesting that seems to be the case.
So our Kolbe students, especially high schoolers, are reading quite a lot. They read a lot. How would you encourage a student who's approaching the Kolbe reading assignments at this point, high school?
Let me think. Does this still start off with the Greek literature?
Yes.
Like, okay, yeah. Um, you just gotta plow through it.
Okay.
Um, when I started off the Greek literature stuff, I was that same way, awed and stunned, and
Right.
uh, my mom, who's mostly doing most of the running of the school part, she was like, "Oh yeah, if you're going to read this, you can't just skip pieces. You got to read the whole thing." And I'm a fairly fast reader, so I plowed through it, and getting through it, just it was just something you had to buckle down and do. I think something I learned later on is reading Shakespeare. Shakespeare sounds better out loud, and I suspect the same is probably true for the Iliad and the Odyssey and those things. I haven't gone back and tried that yet.
That and I didn't read the Iliad until I was my first year of college. So, and I felt the same way being 18 years old instead of at the beginning of high school. So I think that's great advice is just yeah, it's going to be something completely different, but just plow through is good advice.
Mhm. Okay. Well, let's talk now about your current endeavors. You're serving at the National Shrine of Our Lady of Champion in Wisconsin. So, tell us about the shrine, its historical and spiritual significance, and your role there as one of the chaplains.
So, historically, it was in 1859 that Our Lady appeared to Adele Brise here in what was known then as the Robinsonville area or Bay Settlement area, but now we have the town of Champion here. And so now it's called Our Lady of Champion. But when she appeared, she had a short message about praying and doing penance for conversion, but of sinners, offering communion for them, and then also teaching catechism. Um, Going out, I think one of the phrases they like to put on the literature is from Our Lady was, "Gather the children in this wild country and teach them what they should know for salvation." And so what I was saying earlier about like fruits in reading, we applied here, and I think the bishop applied when he did the discernment about whether this should be an approved apparition or not, almost 150 years after the fact. So she looked at the fruits here. Adele went around teaching children their catechism. She later founded an order of sisters, which taught catechism here on the grounds as they built a school, which is still standing here today. And then with that, a lot of people, just immigrants who weren't always coming to church faithfully because of the distance to churches, but now receiving catechism instruction, especially for their kids. And a lot of people coming to this shrine during that time, even praying for favors and asking Our Lady for aid when it came to things that they needed. There is a collection of crutches downstairs, some dating back to that period of people who had. I mean, I'm sure there were other issues that got healed as well, but those are the ones where they left behind. I no longer need this to walk. So it has a place in the hearts of those around who could say, my family has been here since the 1850s and have been coming to the shrine. And then it was approved in 2010, I believe, by Bishop David Ricken. And then the Fathers of Mercy started staffing the shrine here in 2011. The apparition, I say her presence because there is something when you go down to the apparition site. It's in a sort of crypt, the oratory, underneath of the main chapel body. So the sanctuary is over top of the site, and then down below is the apparition site where people go to pray with Our Lady. And there is a sense that Our Lady is still here. She's present to her people, to her children who come and pray with her. And usually as they come and pray with her for help with the troubles in their lives, whether those be spiritual or physical or emotional troubles that they need healing in. I think a lot of people do find that. We've got some different testimonies about people who have found healing at the shrine. I think one of the biggest spiritual ministries that we do here is we provide 3 times of confession a day. I think 2 are on the public schedule. We have 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock before our 11 o'clock mass, and then in the afternoon from 2 to 3. But we also offer confessions after mass in case there were people who couldn't go before mass. That way they have an opportunity. So during the summer, we end up hearing about 3 hours of confessions a day. If you've got 2 priests in there, both those times, it could be up to 6 hours every day. This is offered. And that's been a huge source of spiritual healing for people as we receive people who, we've got people who go weekly, people who go monthly, and people who are like, I came with a bunch of friends I haven't been for 10, 20, 30 years. And then they're able to receive that spiritual healing and even resurrection, spiritual resurrection from the death of mortal sin here at Our Lady's Shrine.
That's amazing to think about. It's beautiful. What does a typical day there for you look like, Father?
So typical day here, we combine kind of the Fathers of Mercy, our prayers together as a community. There are 3 Fathers of Mercy here. Father Tony Stevens is the rector. Myself is one of the chaplains. And then there's another chaplain. Father Michael French is here currently, but he'll be replaced by Father Zachary Feldger in July, switching assignments in that regard. So we have morning prayer together, just us. It's 7:15 in the morning, and that's rosary and the breviary and some time for meditation. And then I know the gift shop and cafe here open 6 days a week at 9 o'clock. And then we have those confessions offered from 10 to 11. Some days of the week, there's an 8:30 mass in the morning. And then 11 to 12 is mass. And then after mass, we have exposition of the Blessed Sacrament. We have adoration for most of the afternoon. Confessions offered after mass. And then blessings. We do blessings for people who have bought stuff in the gift shop that they would like blessed, sacramentals at 1 o'clock. And then back in the confessional from 2 to 3. Not every priest is following that schedule every day. Thankfully, with 3 of us, we're rotating through the different assignments so that we can sort of recuperate from the last couple of days or make other things happen, like podcast interviews. 3 o'clock is we pray the Chaplet of Divine Mercy here publicly, and then have benediction of the Blessed Sacrament and another blessing for sacramentals that might have purchased it. I think the gift shop and cafe close at 4, and then the grounds close at 7. Fathers of Mercy, we usually do our own evening holy hour for us from 4:30 to 5:30. And it's with Vespers and the chaplet and some meditation time. Yeah, and then we have the evenings usually to recuperate, maybe work on some talks or papers or prepare for meetings in the evening. Sometimes we recreate together. We'll watch a movie or play a game or just have time for reading.
Yeah. Okay. Stephen, is now a good time for you to tell us about your experience with your daughter?
Yeah, I think it would. A few years ago, we were up with my daughter in the Green Bay area because she had some some issues with her back so we were seeing a specialist up there, and had a chance to go up to the shrine, and it seems like a lot has been done recently, but it was just a wonderful experience, like you said, to go down into the chapel, and then there's a kind of a lovely walk outside with various things as well. But it was one of the things we remember in our trips out to the Green Bay area. Very, very lovely. It does make me think about Wisconsin as being a lovely place to go for pilgrimage. The one apparition site in the United States, right there. But then I grew up in Wisconsin, but I grew up in the other side of the state, closer to the Our Lady of Guadalupe shrine, which is also definitely worth visiting if you're making a trip to Wisconsin.
Beautiful.
Actually, the three Marian shrines in Wisconsin have been promoting this pilgrim passport, coordinated with the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe and the Shrine of Mary Help of Christians, which is popularly known as Holy Hill. And so this is the pilgrim passport is a great way to not only just visit the shrines, but know what's going on there and to receive the Jubilee year indulgences, as well as to reflect on what the message is or what Our Lady might be doing in your own life, especially as you go on these pilgrimages asking for favors. With 3 Jubilee year pilgrimage sites here in Wisconsin at 3 shrines of Our Lady, you get also a different, I think, emphasis on Our Lady at the different shrines. I haven't visited the other 2 yet. I've been here 9 months. I just haven't, I want to say haven't had the time, but it's really, I haven't taken the time yet to drive across the state. It's a trek that I'll have to plan ahead for.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that is something we were also wanting to visit with you about, is celebrating the Jubilee Year of Hope at the shrine. Get some ideas for families and visitors who would like to do that. So that's a great idea to start with. Are there additional ones that you would have for us?
Yes. So I know in July 20th, we're having a big Jubilee Mass that we've been trying to advertise, where the bishop will come out and celebrate the Sunday Mass, and we will have a Eucharistic and Marian procession. So that would be a great opportunity, but the plenary indulgence can be gained by visiting the shrine and then fulfilling the other conditions of plenary indulgence with receiving Holy Communion that day, going to confession. There is a sort of like a 40-day around. A confession can count for mini indulgences, right? Or for mini plenary indulgences. So if you go to confession before or after 20 days of carrying out the indulgence act, that suffices. And then prayers for the Holy Father. I think for the Jubilee year indulgence, it also includes saying a creed in the church that you're visiting as well. The final piece is having a complete detachment from sin as much as you can, right? As much as you're able to.
Okay.
With the regular mass schedule and confessions, it seems like you can really delve in there at the shrine there, at least.
Oh yes, it's very easy here at the shrine.
I imagine you get visitors from all over the place.
We see everybody. So I think a couple months ago, I met a young fellow from France. I know we've had some people from Canada. At our big event in May, the Walk to Mary, which goes from the National Shrine of St. Joseph in De Pere in Green Bay to the shrine, we had close to 7,000 people register, and people from all over the country. About half of them were from out of state. Then as well, I think just an ordinary weekday here in the shop early in June, we were interested in this very question, so we've been collecting zip codes just to see where people are coming from. And we went the whole morning before we met somebody from Wisconsin. It was a busy morning, people in and out all 3 hours, and it wasn't till after, I think it was not till after Mass they had a zip code from Wisconsin.
Wow. That's neat.
So yeah, they're coming from all over. It's getting more well known, and especially we meet a lot of people who learned about it at the National Eucharistic Congress last summer. They met the shrine in Indianapolis, the staff who visited there for that, and we're like, oh, we've got to come up. And I'm still meeting people who are like, this is where I heard about it from.
That's neat. So we've had a couple of conversations so far this year, this being the Jubilee year, about pilgrimage, but I'm interested in your recommendations for pilgrims to either the Shrine of Our Lady of Champion or to other similar places. How do you recommend folks prepare for a pilgrimage, undertake that, and even, afterward reflect on it and live well the fruits that come from that?
So there's a couple things, right? You want to prepare You can might even make a novena beforehand, especially during this year of hope. Might be good as you prepare with prayer beforehand to learn the act of hope, to memorize it. And even as I say that now, I'm realizing it's been a while since I've prayed that prayer, and I'm going to get back to that. But to prepare that way, also there is in the Book of Blessings, there is a blessing for pilgrims as they're departing, and you can ask your pastor for that if he would give you that blessing. It's in the Book of Blessings; he can find it. It's a beautiful prayer for pilgrims. There's also a prayer for pilgrims on their return too, that you might want to ask your pastor for, or a priest that you know. So prayer before and after, and make sure that the trip is, you might also want to offer something else up on the trip, do some penance, because what comes with the indulgence is that remission of temporal punishment, which is often mitigated by the forms of penance, right? Prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. So you can offer something up beforehand or even on your journey. And then when you get to the shrine, taking the opportunity to make sure that there are a bunch of ways to receive an indulgence. You can pray a rosary in front of the Blessed Sacrament, visiting the shrine, of course, with those other prayers, with those other conditions for indulgences being met. And then realize too that you'll probably experience some suffering that you didn't plan for. That is often a part of the pilgrimage experience, is unexpected setbacks. Those are often where God is going to give the most grace, because more is given with the penances that we accept than with the penances that we choose, because there's more humility there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's got to be an interesting balance to strike, like having almost an expectation that something is going to come up without a fear of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what is a spiritual pilgrimage, and how would one undertake that? How is that different in the first place? And let's go from there.
So I think this is for those who can't make it, right? For those who can't actually take on a physical visit. And so actually we've got on our website, it's included in Bishop Ricken's promulgation of these pilgrimage sites for the year of Jubilee. He talks about those who live with faith and joyful hope in the midst of their trials, and by receiving Holy Communion and attending Mass if they can in their own locale.
Okay.
So what it is trying to carry out the acts of pilgrimage without actually doing it because you're not able to, and with that intention of, Lord, if I was able to, I would come visit, but I can't, so I'm offering up. And maybe that's primarily it. I'm offering up the sorrow of my heart and not being able to make that pilgrimage as part of that offering, but carrying out the other acts that would go with it, attending Mass, trying to go to confession, or maybe even if you're homebound, calling your priest and saying, can you come hear my confession? Because I know there's, in a lot of parishes, it's there are lay people, extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion, doing visits to the sick, because priests don't have the time to be doing that every week with the many people who are in need in our parishes. But to be able to go to confession would be a great grace, something to ask for, in order to receive that indulgence. And even maybe watching one of our masses from the stream might be a help to do that as well.
Okay. Are there things that we haven't gotten to yet that you want to be sure that we cover?
Adele Brise for her canonization.
Oh, yeah.
So I know that Bishop Ricken recently talked to the USCCB about it, and they're advancing the cause right now. So we're working with the dicastery for the cause of saints to carry that forward. So we encourage people to come when they visit the shrine to also visit Adele's gravesite, which is right next to the chapel, and maybe even offer a prayer to her. I know some people who are praying to her for help with eyesight, because she lost an eye when she was a child. But I think praying to her for help and educating children on the faith might be one of her specialties, because that's what she carried out during her life. That's what Our Lady called her to carry out during her life.
Well, she's a good one for us homeschooling families then. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, any final thoughts or takeaways at this point, Father Nathan?
Well, try to finish with Mary. That might be one of the things to so we talk about I put it, cultivating a relationship with Mary is something that I found difficult. I know others might find difficult, but I think consecration to Mary helps with that a great deal. And especially finding literature that's not just theological about her, but that engages in that sort of devotional approach to her. I recently have discovered, and I know this is for priests. I don't know how many priests you have listening to your podcast, but there's this great book called Mary and the Priestly Ministry that has really deepened my devotion and my relationship with her and talking to her. I think one of the great things being here is I live on the second floor of the shrine, and making an effort every day to go downstairs and talk to Mary. It's a reminder of that it's a work to keep her close. It shouldn't be. Feels like you'd be like, well, you're here at the shrine, just go. It should be easy. But it's actually not. And so I think that's probably the same in our own lives too. Remembering to talk to Mary is going to take effort, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes to listen to her, prompting us to talk to her Son and to listen to the inspirations of the Holy Spirit.
Well, Father Nathan, how do you suggest folks find out more about the shrine and the upcoming events that you all have going on?
So I recommend, of course, our website. We have a great communications team who keep that very up to date. And then, of course, the different forms of social media, right? Facebook and I think Instagram and YouTube. We've got presences on all those platforms. As well, you can sign up for our newsletters and receive monthly newsletters and the different novenas that we pray throughout the year. And they'll always include updates on events going on at the shrine. And especially, we have a great tool on how to plan a pilgrimage. One of our pages on our site that I think is super helpful for people.
This has been great. Thank you, Father, for coming and visiting with us.
Definitely. Yep. Okay, our show notes will have links to the Shrine's website and to find out more about the Fathers of Mercy, as well as links to relevant Kolbecast episodes and the Kolbe recommended reading list. So we'll send folks there after listening to this. It sure has been a joy to visit with you, Father Nathan. Know of our prayers for you and your ministry and on the work you're doing. We'd love to visit with you again. Come back and talk to us again sometime soon. Thank you.
I would love to. It's great talking to you all as well.
Subscribe to the Kolbecast on your favorite podcast app so that you don't miss an episode. And let us know how we're doing by leaving a rating or a review. And as always, feel free to email us at podcast@kolbe.org.
Mary, our Mother, pray for us. St. Maximilian Kolbe, St. Ignatius of Loyola, holy saints and angels, pray for us. Ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam.